Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are joining us from across Africa or the globe. I am Madeleine Mkunu, the president of Leading Women of Africa. So, on behalf of Leading Women of Africa, we welcome you to the third G20 conversation. And today the theme is harnessing Africa's critical minerals from extractions to transformation. I would really recommend to everyone, if you did not attend the past two debate or sessions, I would recommend you to watch it in our YouTube. Yeah, so where we've covered Ubuntu diplomacy, and we've covered as well last week Ubuntu economy. So that was very, very interesting topics that we discussed there. Right. So, as we know, for the first time in history, Africa is basically presiding over the G20. So, this is really an opportunity for us as Africans, not only for visibility, but it comes with a responsibility where we need to be present, we need to be visible on because it is in our soil. So for the first time in history, South Africa is hosting the G20. This moment, as I said, really offers us an opportunity to stand united and to stand strong. So through this series of debates that we are doing, of conversation, we are really just bringing together the perspectives of Africans, who might not be on the table where the real discussions is happening. So these discussions are not just ending here. What we are doing, we are collecting all the perspectives and obviously passing them over to decision makers, to policy makers, so that they can hear the insights of Africans. So with today's issue of the critical minerals, as we know, the world is accelerating toward green energy future. And Africa stands to hold over 30% of the world critical mineral reserves. And from cobalt to lithium to platinum to many other rare minerals. So the question is basically, will Africa continue to just be a supplier of raw minerals, or we're going to get to a point where we become architects of transformation, building industries and creating jobs and prosperity for our people? We have the Agenda 2063, that 2063 just around the corner. We might think that it's far away. It's really around the corner. And we are so blessed with all these resources. Are these resources helping us to really prepare the implementation or the attainment of the Agenda 2063? And some of the commentators of the past sessions were like saying, the year 2063 will be actually led by youth. So are we inviting youth around the table? Are we inviting women around the tables? So those are some critical questions that we will be dealing with this morning. How are we benefiting from the global green transition that the world is going? So before I introduce you to our panelists of today, I would like you to just allow us a 1 minute to introduce Leading Women of Africa, the vision, the mission, how it's aligned as well to what we are doing. So, Antioch, over to you. 1 minute. Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's Leading Women of Africa. Please feel free to follow us on all social media. We are there and we would like to engage with you. We want to see you as part of LWA family. So it's now my greatest honor to introduce the panelists of today. We will just basically have their pictures on the screen before inviting one by one to discuss the session or the topic of today. So I would like to introduce you Ms. Veloshni Singh, a business development consultant and a geologist with over 20 years experience in the mining sector. Thank you to have you for your presence, Ms. Veloshni. I will also introduce Ambassador Mohau Peko, a former South African ambassador and leading voice in Africa's industrial transformation. She represented South Africa in Japan and Canada, fostering partnerships in renewable energy, trade, and technology. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining the panel. Next is Babalwa Fatih, who's the founder and director of Miezo Environmental Management Services, an internationally recognized or registered auditor and recognized environmental leader. Welcome, Babala. Then we have Dr. Madeleine, my namesake. Madeleine Gomez is an international speaker, a trauma healer, and a founder of I Am Possible program. She holds a doctorate degree in metaphysical science from the US. Thank you again, Madeleine, for joining. Then we're going to also have one man today, Mr. John Mukunu, who is an Africa's independent geopolitics analyst and futurist, conducting analysis and providing independent views on global issues, including conflict and international affairs. Welcome, John. Great. So now let's hear from the panelists. We're gonna start with Ms. Singh, Veloshni Singh. You can present, then we can have a comment after it. Thank you so much. Over to you, Veloshni.
Good day, everyone. Can you hear me clearly? Yes. Thanks, Madeline. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. It's a very pivotal time in the African history, and being able to contribute to a very important topic that is safe to my heart as a geologist. I'm very happy to be here. So I prepared a short brief on what I felt was relevant to the topic. And I'm just going to talk about that, and obviously make your notes, and we'll have a further discussion if there's anything further you'd like to address. So Africa stands at the heart of the global green transition due to its vast reserves of critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, nickel, and rare earth elements. These minerals are essential for modern renewable technologies, including batteries, electric vehicles, and solar panels. However, Africa's role has largely been relegated to that of an exporter of raw materials, capturing only a small fraction of the value generated from these resources. This reality occurs amidst growing geopolitical and economic tensions as major global superpowers compete fiercely for access to Africa's mineral wealth. To navigate this complex geopolitical rivalry and advance resource-based industrialization, Africa must first unify its voice and vision. The continent urgently needs a coordinated and robust governance framework among its member states before it can effectively engage with the global north and other investors. The African Union's recently approved African Green Minerals Strategy provides a roadmap for this, offering a continent-wide blueprint that emphasizes mineral beneficiation, responsible mining, and alignment with Africa's broader green industrialization and sustainability goals. This strategy aims to shift Africa from being mere raw material suppliers to becoming active players in global value chains through local value addition and processing. Preventing the pitfalls of green colonialism requires deliberate safeguards that protect land and resource rights, promote environmental sustainability, and ensure equitable benefits for local communities. Strong regulatory frameworks must be enforced to uphold these principles. Equally important is the inclusive participation of all stakeholders, particularly indigenous peoples and vulnerable groups, to avoid exploitation and mitigate social harm. These measures are essential to establish fair, inclusive, and environmentally responsible mineral development. Africa's future in the green transition depends on its ability to govern these resources wisely and inclusively. By investing in downstream processing, infrastructure, skills development, and sustainable industrial policies, African nations can transform their mineral wealth into lasting prosperity and resilience. Furthermore, leveraging regional integration mechanisms like the African Continental Free Trade Area will enhance Africa's collective bargaining power on the global stage. Ultimately, Africa's success lies not only in the minerals beneath the soil, but in its vision and capacity to convert these assets into sustainable economic and social development for generations to come. This comprehensive approach, combining unity, governance, environmental and social safeguards, and industrial value addition, will empower Africa to engage superpowers on more equal footing and ensure its mineral resources serve the continent's long-term transformation. Thanks, Madeline. That's just my bit about, the various issues related to how we're actually going to maneuver the scramble for Africa's minerals and this transformation. It has to happen. We all know this, but all these points that are picked on is what everybody is talking about. We need the unification. We need all the African states to come together and not just worry about themselves. We need to eliminate the competition that exists amongst all these lithium producers like Namibia and Zimbabwe, And I think that's what's so important. So for me, it's really such a mindset shift that we need to actually focus on. And how are we going to do that?
How are we going to do that? That is always a million-dollar question. But definitely, I think you've touched to the core of the issues at hand. And you mentioned actually something about the major superpowers are actually fighting on Africa's resources. It's a global war. It is a trade war, whether we like it or not. We are in the middle of war, and we really need to be strategic on how we could fight this war. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Philoshni, for your contribution. And I'm sure there will be more comments a little later. Right, let's now hear from Ambassador Mohau Pekka. Ambassador, over to you.
Thank you very much, Madeline. I want to start off by saying that for generations, Africa has supplied the world's minerals. As my previous speaker said, gold, cobalt, platinum, lithium, but we've never supplied its machines. And we often recite these minerals like a prayer, as if naming them alone carries power. But naming minerals, gold, platinum, it's not enough. When we only list what we have, we lose sight of what we can do. And when we lose sight of what they do, we lose sight of what Africa could build. So let's speak about these minerals with their full meaning. Gold runs the medical devices industry. It runs high precision electronics. It runs the aerospace systems. Cobalt is the backbone of the rechargeable batteries. It's the pulse of electric mobility. Platinum drives catalytic converters and the hydrogen economy that everybody is talking about. Lithium is the absolute nerve center of battery storage. Electronic vehicles, electronics. I think once we understand what these minerals produce, we understand what Africa could produce, and that shift changes things. Africa's mineral map is not a geopolitical, it's not a geological accident. It is a strategic inheritance. Copper for our grids, our power grids and motors. Nickel for our turbines. We can't have wind farms without nickel. Rare earths for sensors. Sensors are everywhere now and in robotics. Silicon for semiconductors and natural gas for fertilizer and green hydrogen. We speak of Africa's minerals as if they stop at the shoreline, but beneath our oceans lies another empire of wealth. Africa's blue economy holds minerals and biological resources that the world is only beginning to understand. Marine enzymes for cancer treatment, marine compounds for water treatment, biotextiles, algae-based polymers, which means that we could probably get rid of plastics and begin to replace it with some of these products. And deep sea mineral nodules containing cobalt, nickel, manganese, and rare earths used in electronics are also underneath our oceans. Every satellite in the sky, every smartphone that we are holding on this continent, every electric car on G20 highways carries a piece of Africa's earth. And let's be honest, sisters, you know how high heels lengthen our calves and make half the men lose their minds in the room? Girl, even those high heels are built on minerals. Steel in the shank so that the shoe doesn't collapse. Silica in the soles. Titanium in the arch. Petrochemicals in the false leathers. The G20 walks on Fashion Week catwalks on Africa's minerals. Even when they don't realize the runway beneath their feet started on our soil. Yet, the wealth we send out returns to us as finished goods, priced higher and protected by patents, and powered by our own minerals. Beneficiation is not a technical term. It's a declaration of our agency. It says we will no longer be the world's quarry. We will be its workshop, its laboratory, its production house. But ownership matters because without land rights, the mineral extraction conversation is mute for women. Women must own land because you cannot negotiate the future if you do not own the ground beneath your feet. Now, let me get to semiconductors. Those tiny chips that animate the modern world, they sit quietly inside everything. Inside solar inverters, inside medical scanners, inside AI systems, drones, inside satellites, inside electric vehicles. They are built from materials here, born on the African continent: silicon, nickel, copper, cobalt, rare earths. If the world wants a digital future, it needs what is buried under African soil. So the question is not whether participates. The question is, do we participate as miners or as makers? Africa may not build the next Silicon Valley, but it absolutely can build the next Silica Valley because we hold the sand, the metals, and the imagination. But imagination alone does not industrialize a continent. We must talk about the real gatekeeper, financing. Who gets funded determined who gets to participate. Who receives capital determines who becomes an owner and who remains an operator. Today, less than 5% of industrial and venture financing reaches African women, not for lack of ideas, but because the system was never built with women as intended founders of factories, of labs, and energy companies. When women are locked out of financing, innovation is locked out of progress. To change this, we need new instruments, a women's beneficiation funds, gender-responsive green banks, regional accelerators placing youth in mineral tech, advanced manufacturing, clean energy engineering. Integrating women is not a diversity gesture, it is an industrial strategy. But Africa cannot do this alone. The global system must change with us. The green transition cannot be built on old extractive habits. That is how green colonialism emerges. When wealthy nations clean their energy pathways, they outsource the environmental and human cost to Africa. They dump their toxic waste, their plastics, their chemical sludge, and their industrial rubbish in our oceans, using our waters and our coastlines as their trash can, poisoning the very ecosystem our people depend on for survival. An African mineral sovereignty and value retention minerals compact is what the continent needs to commit to. It ensures that Africa does not merely participate in mineral markets, but retains value at every stage of extraction, processing, manufacturing, and innovation. The compact is not an appeal. It is a declaration that Africa will no longer export wealth and import dependence. The world keeps looking at Africa and seeing minerals. But minerals are just the prologue. The real story is the mines, the makers, the women who turn elements into engines, ores into opportunity, raw material into refined power. Africa is done exporting potential. This century, we export power, shaped, assembled, and finished on African soil by African women who know that minerals are not wealth. Transformation is wealth. Africa is not the world's mine. Africa is the world's multiplier. When African women lead beneficiation, we don't just power the green transition, we power a new global imagination. We are not the shadows behind global supply chains. We are the architects of a new industrial age. We are not here seeking permission. We are here with purpose, and we are switching a new future on. Thank you very much.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much, Ambassador. We are not here seeking permission. So owning minerals on its own is not wealth. Transformation is. And that's where we need to head to. That's where we need to head to. And I like the fact that you even highlighted the green colonialism that we are facing today. It is a reality. It is a reality. But the position that you are advising that women need to be placed, the ownership of the land, we cannot claim to be powerful if what is underneath our feet we do not own it. So ownership is key. So thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you so much for that contribution. And I'm sure there will be so many comments and we will have time to engage. Let's now invite Ms. Babalwa Fati. Let's hear from you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And greetings to everyone in the room. I am going to just relate my own experience of the minerals sector or the mining industry as a little girl growing up in the rural areas in the Eastern Cape, where I would witness or see our brothers being recruited to the former Transvaal. This is in South Africa, Gauteng, now in the modern day terminology, to work in the mines. So I grew up seeing a mining sector or the minerals themselves as a source of income generation and poverty alleviation. I saw it as a transformative engine that fired up many people's dreams. It came with urbanization, civilization, and people transforming their lives for the better. And for us, in my experience in this South African context, which I think can be extrapolated in other African countries, it created new ways of being and of survival. Men were not there. They were in the cities. And you find that in the rural villages, women had to take up the role of being leaders. You will recall our former president in South Africa once mentioned that he grew up in a village that was headed by women. These were some of the reasons in terms of industrialization, and mining was at the center of all this. So the positive was that women were inspired to revoke their leadership capabilities and strength, which is coming from the desire to protect, to feed your children and to nurture them. And I'm intentionally not saying they were empowered. I'm saying they were inspired to revoke their intrinsic natural capabilities to be leaders. The men would send money home. I saw my mother, my grandmother as a grandchild at that time, and my uncle's wives receiving money, organizing tractors so that we can plow for subsistence living. And agriculture was a blooming sector in the Eastern Cape province at that time. So as a young woman or a child, a girl child at the time, this is what I was exposed to. And all this had been initiated by the effects of mining in our villages and societies. This was the positive that I got to experience with seeing women hands-on in getting things done. Those are the same women now today we are fighting for to be included in the economic growth and development, especially when it comes to extracting value from the minerals that we have in our land as Africans. We know there were also negatives that came from the mining sector. Health and safety, we lost our brothers, we lost our uncles, we lost our fathers because of the incidents at the mines. Health impacts, HIV and AIDS due to the living conditions and hostels at the time. Environmental impacts. And there was also, though, the positive that was brought this to our people, the human resource development. The mines at the time, even if it was not clearly defined, from my experience, they were trying to make sure that when this resource, because the minerals by themselves, we have geologists here amongst the panelists, you extract a mineral and they can come to an end. Therefore, you need to have a vision of what's going to happen now to the economy post the mining activities. We saw our uncles coming up with skills like building houses. Others had plumbing capabilities. They would go to the cities and seek new jobs. Others would buy the tractors. They would be supported by some of the mines to buy tractors and start the operations in terms of developing the agricultural sector in those labor-sending areas. What can we learn then from this? We need to keep this institutional memory, remember where we come from within this sector, and not throw the bathtub with the child, just throwing everything that happened in the past because of the pain and everything that were not done right in the mineral sector in the past, especially in Africa. We carry a lot of scars because of the mining industry and the way in which things were undertaken. We've buried our fathers, we've buried uncles, we've buried many people due to the scars and the scourges of the minerals in the way in which they have been extracted. But we need to learn from the good, what worked then, and what failed, and what caused pain, so that we don't build this economy now, this blooming new green economy on the past pains. We need to contribute, be active citizens, contribute towards the formulation of our countries or continents, its respective countries' constitution that promote the thriving of its people, so that our people are not being seen as means to an end, that they be the end and must be at the end, lifted up by their very own intrinsic value. They are proud to see their nations united in solidarity and prospering. Mining sector is still going to be at the core of such prosperity because we have been blessed and endowed with these minerals as Africans. We need an enabling regulatory framework. My fellow panelists have already alluded to this, that can promote responsible extraction and drive inclusivity and equity, where all means all, as the leaders of African nations would say, participate in our minerals wealth, indigenous and marginalized groups being at the forefront because they carry the know-how of the land, how certain things work. We cannot talk about biodiversity without involving those who grew up around these certain natural resources, because the minerals themselves are coming from that path. We need fairness and justice. We need solidarity, joining hands together towards a vision of prosperity, and sustainability must be at the forefront, driving economy, skilling up our children, skilling up our people, providing enabling environments, and protecting the environment. Literally, we should not bite the hand that feeds us, because our environment and our natural resources are what are enabling us to be able to extract value from those minerals. We can't do this without water for processing purposes. We cannot continue polluting the air, and if we want the same people who are going to be dying from the health impacts of our activities to be the drivers behind this economy that we are talking about. There's also a saying that says, do not turn your back on the sea. This is an African way of living, because this it comes from the fact that if you have the ocean, it feeds you, you fish from it. So in some African parts of our African continent, even when you are organizing your desk, the way you sit, you can never turn your back on the sea. So let's just go back to our natural value systems of Ubuntu, because we've always respected nature. So when we talk about environmental management, it's inbuilt within us. That's how we relate with nature. We need good governance. We need ethical and values-based leadership. We need to bring back compassion and Ubuntu and being our brothers' keepers. If I am mining, and as a big mining company, I can see that there is some maybe dumps that are not going to be sustainable if I extract them from my own organization due to its scale. Then there's my brother next door. There's my neighbor, junior miners, small scale miners that we can give equipment to extract the same minerals at the scale that they can afford. Just bring them, give them the pants that are no longer fitting you and give them the tools to extract. It's intrinsically within us. It's just being Africans when you do like that. Help our younger juniors to extract, share knowledge with them. No, Mwanaga, no, my brother, this is how it's done. It comes naturally, coaching and mentoring before it was even given a name. That's what we do best as Africans. Let's just remember who we are and apply that within this sector that is at the core of our economic growth and development. We need to beneficiate. We cannot continue doing what we are doing. I won't dwell on this. My fellow panelists have already spoken about it. But we need to see the prosperity and the boom, creating vibrant economies and sustaining other industries here in Africa, here at home. Let us be transformed by the renewal of our mind, be innovative, futuristic in our thinking, learn from others. But as we learn, let us abandon ourselves. Let us always remember our value systems and being the Africans that we are, and use that competitive edge in extracting value from what God has blessed us with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Babalwa. I love your conclusion. Let's be transformed by the renewal of our mind. I think that is really the message that we need to pass on. We need to change our mind. Our mindset need to be renewed. And I love this saying. It's actually the first time that I hear this, that never turn your back on the sea. Wow, that is so powerful. Never turn your back on the sea, because in the sea, there's actually a source of living water that could come out of that. And what is under is actually what we need as well for our development. And just your emphasis on sustainability, that sustainability must be at the forefront of the development. Thank you so much, Ms. Babalo. I'm sure there's so much comment and you will hear a bit more later. You touch on Ubuntu as well, so which was, we've been discussing about Ubuntu the past few weeks already. Thank you so much for putting emphasis on that. Let's now hear from Dr. Madeleine Gomez, my namesake. Dr. Madeleine, over to you.
Thank you, Madeleine. It's so lovely to be here, and I thank you for the opportunity. I feel very honored to be part of this group of powerful people that's looking for change for the future. If we don't do it, who will do it, right? If we don't start it, who will do it? So, a wonderful group to be in. I grew up as well with my uncles working in the mines, my family from the farm, from the land. I know exactly what you are talking about. And I'm very passionate about our minerals but I'm equally passionate about keeping it in our country and in Africa and not letting it cipher out like it is now. Not only going to Europe and the other countries, but the illegal miners that we've got a problem with in our country, because we're not only losing money, we're losing job opportunities and so much more for our own people. So Africa stands at a defining moment in her history. Beneath our soil lies more than mineral wealth. It's the promise of a new future. The world's clean energy transition depends on what Africa holds in abundance: lithium, cobalt, copper, graphite, and rare earth minerals. I just want to add, because I'm a mindset coach, we've been conditioned to think Africa is less and small. We're not. When we go into history, we are powerful. We have the minerals that nobody else got, and we're bigger than everyone else. So we must stop thinking small, and we must stop putting ourselves on a stage of smallness. For far too long, we have been the source and not the supplier. We have mined wealth, but not always built prosperity. Our minerals have traveled far, while too many of our people have remained in poverty. Today, the story must change. This is Africa's time, not only to extract, but to transform. We must no longer send our resources abroad to be refined, processed, and valued. We must create the value here, within our borders, within our people, and within our economies. Transformation begins when we move from raw material to refined product, from dependency to destiny. Imagine for a moment the same lithium that leaves African soil returning as a finished battery, powering our cities, our transport, and our industries. Imagine copper and cobalt refined in Africa, assembled into clean energy technologies, designed and manufactured on African soil. This is not a dream. Sorry, it jumped out of my hand as I said that. Hold on 1 second. My notes. This is not a dream. It's a decision. To achieve it, Africa must build partnerships rooted in trust, transparency, and shared value. And that's why we're in the position we are, because these are lacking. We need infrastructure that connects, policies that empower, and education that equips our young minds for the industries of tomorrow. But above all, we need unity of purpose. The African Continental Free Trade Area gives us the platform. If we harmonize our industrial policies and collaborate instead of compete, we can build regional value change, not scattered efforts, but an integrated ecosystem where one nation mines, another refines, and a third manufacture. Together, we can create prosperity that circulates within Africa. We must also champion ethical and sustainable mining, ensuring that our natural wealth never becomes a curse, but a blessing. Communities must benefit, the environment must be protected, and the women and youth must be at the center of opportunity, not at the margins of it. To our global partners, Africa seeks not charity, but collaboration. We welcome investment, but we invite partnership. Partnerships that bring technology, training, and trust. Let us co-create industries, not just contracts. Let us build energy corridors, innovation hubs, and research alliances that will make Africa the heart of the world's clean energy future. The time has come for Africa to move from extraction to transformation, from being a supplier of resources to a source of innovation. When we refine our minerals at home, we refine our future and the future of our children. When we invest in our people, we invest in global stability, because I believe, as a spiritual teacher, Africa is the spiritual hub the foundation of the world. What happens in Africa carries through, right through the world. That's why they suppress us, because our power is beyond power. And when we unite in purpose, we turn Africa's wealth into a world shared prosperity. Africa is not waiting for change. Africa is becoming the change. Let us rise together, transforming the riches beneath our feet into hope, opportunity, and divine abundance for generations to come. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Madeleine. I think one line that I take out of this is what you say, Africa is a spiritual hub. I was, and why I'm saying that, when Dr. Kaunda was here, I was basically my mentor, and one day I was sitting with him and he was basically just pouring in me the journey of Africa and the organization of Africa and how it started in the 60s. And he highlighted one thing, that what is holding Africa back, there are strongholds that do not want Africa to progress. I think it's a very important point to bear in mind as we are moving forward. I think we need to look at all the angles why Africa is not moving forward. I think as a development practitioner myself, these are the issues we keep debating in classrooms and all that. But why are we being held behind? Or are there forces that are holding us behind? Because, there are just, the paradox is just too big, too wide to understand the wealth that we do have versus the poverty. And as it's known, the poverty that every woman is wearing. Poverty has the face of woman. I think there's really a lot of paradox. I think I wanted really just to highlight that as we are pushing, as we are, advising, and as we are recommending policies and all that, we must not forget the spiritual part. So thank you so much for bringing that across. Right, let's now end our discussion with Mr. John. Mr. John, over to you with your views on what is being discussed.
Thank you very much, Marie, and to all the guests, welcome. And really, I want to thank you and say thank you to everyone for the intervention. When we speak about African mineral, I think the biggest question we need to ask ourselves is, are these minerals a blessing or a curse? Now, when something is a blessing, you will see the result that it brings to the society: progress, peace, joy, opportunity. And that's why Africa should expect something that is a blessing. But when it turns into something that is a curse, the result is what we see also on the ground: conflict, war, poverty, exploitations. Now, especially when we speak about war in Africa, everybody knows what is happening in the region. When you go to Mozambique, you will see people are dying, children are dying, women and red. A little bit when you go to the DRC, the same modus operandi. Now Sudan is almost another genocide. So the reason is the quest of minerals. Now, how can Africa have minerals? Then around the minerals, instead of bringing prosperity, we can only see destructions, death, violence, genocide. Isn't that really the mineral that Africa was supposed to have? And as a result, become something that really, instead of progress, become regression, become destruction. I think that is the question that everyone needs to ask himself, and Africa should ask itself. Now, when we speak about the G20 in Africa and South Africa, what are we looking when it comes to African minerals? Clearly, we'll be looking for the discussion that can speak not only how Africa should develop, but also how to stop the war around the minerals. You know, we can stop the war if you put a framework that really bring every issue on the table, especially not only when it comes to how should we benefit, but also how should we manage our own resources. You see, every time that we have something that is valuable with us and we don't know how to manage that, it will always end up becoming a problem. And that's exactly what we have in Africa when it comes to minerals. So G20 be a platform where a proper discussion when it comes to putting in place a new framework for a fair trade between Africa and stakeholders. That's very, very important. So the rationale for the new frameworks, according to what we believe can happen, is that advocates are for a new framework is necessary to address the following issue in the current mineral system trade. The first one is equal exchange, and then we have the geopolitical vulnerability, and then sustainable development, climate justice. Those are the issues that require that when we have a proper framework, those issues can be resolved. So what are we expecting? We expect that the current G20 action, the framework currently being developed, aim to promote a fair value chain and local verification, like follow previous partners said. And then encourage transparent and mutually beneficial partnership between supplier and consumer nation. And then ensure minerals serve as catalyst for sustainable development worldwide. So while the G20 framework is currently voluntarily, advocates within academia and civil society are arguing to incorporate a stronger, more binding commitment to ensure equitable outcome for developing nations. So it's okay to have framework, but we need to make sure that those framework are stronger, well binding, especially that way institutions such as the African Union as the Council or United Nations as the Council, you know, because once those frameworks are not really followed up by law, and then all those things, all those laws will be violated. In the next time, we will find ourselves talking about the same things. So we believe that the issue of mineral in Africa, yet one side they may bring prosperity, but to the other side, as long as we don't have a proper framework that really look on the issue to bring order in the industry, Africa will continue to struggle with its own minerals. I thank you.
Thank you so much, John. And I think you just add more questions to us. Are the minerals a blessing or a curse? And I think Babalwa is, no, Dr. Madeleine has also mentioned that, you know, so we were hoping that being so rich in minerals, you know, it should bring jobs, development, infrastructure. We should be the power, right? Like Dr. Madeleine has mentioned, we must look back in the past and see how Africa was so powerful. But when we see wars, conflicts, rape, especially the rape of women on this continent, it's really like a cancer. You know, we see genocide in Sudan, in Eastern DRC, in right next to us in Mozambique here, one will ask. And there are just so many questions. But thank you so much for bringing up the approach that, yes, we need a good framework, a strong framework, but a framework that is reinforceable. It needs to be reinforced. Otherwise, you can have all good laws and policies, they're collecting dust in so many shelves. If they are not reinforced, we will just continue to, to go in circle. So thank you so much for those contributions from all the speakers. You're not done yet. You're not off the hook yet. We're gonna then now just go to our audience to hear what they are saying. I see quite a number of comments in the chat, but I will also like now to see from the audience, if anyone want to comment, please feel free before we then give the speakers the last word. So time now for audience, please. It's your time now to make a contribution. Yes.
More of a difference in not only understanding the power of our minerals, how can we utilize our minerals, what businesses, what qualifications can we get? That way we can actually say, okay, no, we're taking back the extraction and also the value transformation of our minerals. We are going to now use our minerals to make Africa better, to make it the powerhouse that she is, that she can be if we stop sending our minerals abroad.
Right. The question is open to all the speakers. Please feel free to comment.
Can I start?
Yes, Veloshni.
So, a very relevant question, especially coming from a youth. I think the basic level is that the youth need to understand the value of what minerals do. And where does that start? That actually starts in your schools. That actually starts in your interest in STEM subjects, in the science, the technology, the engineering, the mathematics. That actually starts in your passion for understanding what is science. So minerals are science, right? Every mineral develops through a scientific process. So for you to understand the value of a mineral, you need to understand the science behind minerals. And there is a very definite science behind how minerals form. So if you want to be involved in the minerals industry, you have to look at taking a career path that's going to take you along the sciences. That's going to let you study at a postgrad level or undergrad level, but looking into sciences, and where that starts is really in your school. So you have to show an interest in the sciences if you want to benefit from understanding how minerals are going to contribute to your life, or how you can make a life from mineralogy or from minerals or from geology. It's all about the science. So for me, the first step is actually your schooling, whether you're primary, moving into high school, but you have got to make a conscious decision that I want to learn about science, because if I learn about science, then I can actually get into the minerals field and use that as a tool to actually build up my business or work in a mine or work as an engineer. But yeah, that for me, that's kind of where you'd need to start.
Thank you so much. Any other comments from the panelists? Studying science. So science is very important. And I think let me just highlight one point there. Thank you so much. Yes, I'll give you a word turn now, audio. Let me just make this comment. I think as parents in this room, it's really about time, like Veloshny have said, we need to start shifting our kids, to start guiding them, give them professional guidance to really study science. Otherwise, we will have minerals, but we don't have the skills on how to transform them. Then we're going to expect to outsource the skills. And that's where the source of basically, someone will come and control. If you don't know how to control what you have, I mean, someone else will know, and obviously he will have an upper hand on you. I think it's really just about time for African youth to really embrace science as as a skills to have, because without that, then we will continue to outsource. And if we are looking at the Agenda 2063, by then we want an Africa. I think the framework is actually saying that by then we need an Africa that is actually prosperous for everyone. How is it going to happen if our young people are not embracing science? I mean, and us as parents, we have that obligation. I think in the room, there are youth, but there are also mothers and fathers. It's our duty to guide our children to embrace science, because otherwise we will continue to turn around and we will continue to depend. For us to remove that spirit of dependency, we need to be able to have the skills that are required for the transformation that we are looking at. Thank you so much. Yes, Odile, let's hear from you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for all these mind-blowing presentations. And building on what you just said and also what Viloshni said, I would go a little bit further and say that just not only us, we need to, but I think government must also have, in terms of educational policies, really look into pushing the new generation of young adults and university students into those STEM disciplines. It is, I mean, we are still into the overall, doctors and this and that and this and that. The future is in STEM. You look at some of the countries on the continent, India is a hub for a lot of these, let's say, STEM sciences. Africa needs to start harnessing that, because remember, within the next few decades, most of the young people will be coming from this continent. So if we do not prepare them for actually taking over some of these very important, let's say, subjects and disciplines, it will not happen. Like you said, we will have to import. So for me, it would be to how do we actually support? The government has actually endorsed the Pact of the Future from the last UN General Assembly in 2024. In September, saying that, yes, we will do Pact for the Future. How do we implement that? It is part of this. So what are locally or even through the African Union and the different bodies, how do we drive a 2063 agenda that actually empowers women and youth to take the next subject for the next century, so that they are able to actually, like you said, follow through with extracting, with developing the industries, and so on and so on and so on. So for me, that should be really a government policy, an education policy, but also a financial budget planning policy, where the government budgets for educational funding that will take a cohort of students to drive them through those STEMs. So I think it's a deliberate, targeted policy that needs to be put in place. And I don't know how, in terms of pushing for that, we can make it happen. But there are different ways at the parliamentary levels, maybe at the ministerial levels, and so on. But I think these are the next steps if we want to take this seriously and actually empower the youth to take over and start being, let's say, not, how would I say, not encourage or fuel the green colonialism, but rather turn it around and lead it. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that contribution on just insisting STEM is the way to go. And I think this is something that we need to continue pushing. Yes, I've seen Dr. Madeleine before Ambassador Mohau. Dr. Madeleine, you can go ahead.
Working with the youth for quite a while, I found that they need a mindset change. They don't believe enough in themselves, and their confidence is not within them. And because of their low pass rates, it just adds fuel to the fire. So they try and go into university in the mainstream areas. It really means nothing at the end of the day. They can't even find a job. So they need guidance, the right guidance to follow a passion. But apart from that, an interest that will spark a mindset change in them and inspire them to become more than what they are today. Because that's how we're going to change the future, by not repeating the past, but to change and recreate and co-create our future. And I find a lot of the youth, I taught them on my I Am Possible program, which goes into why don't we believe in ourselves? What's the wounds that's keeping us hostage, the strongholds that's keeping us back? And like in 2 Corinthians, it says, if you want to change, you have to renew your mind to become new. How do you do that? You have to let go of the strongholds. You cannot let go of the strongholds if you don't identify them. And most of us are very comfortable in our discomfort because we don't even know that's what's happening to us. And sadly, I see that in the youth. And then they go into despair because they lost interest. Now they have expectations that's not met. Then they lose confidence in themselves because we go me. And at the end of the day, we sit with a youth pack that really is in their late 20s, no experience, no confidence, don't know where to go. So what happens? They start to use drugs. They get into the wrong groups. They start to develop the wrong habits. So if we can at school level start this interest again, spark it in them, that we've got this beauty underneath our feet. Why don't you get involved? Because that's where our future lies. And in so many other ways, we can change the future.
We can definitely change the future with over 60% of Africans are actually youth, so we can definitely change the future. Yes, Ambassador Mohab.
Yeah, I want to take a little bit of a different direction. On the first level, I think that we don't talk enough about the periodic table in schools, in universities, and yet studying the periodic table helps us, first of all, know which minerals are available and what they do. And I think that's important. But my second point is, I think sometimes we get very technical. That yes, STEM is a good direction, but it's not everybody's direction. I think that we don't have enough innovation hubs that take up students, teach them what the problems are, or allow them to experiment with their ideas. I don't necessarily think that youth are in despair and all that. I think that we need to be enablers of this generation. Why can't we allow youth to come up with problems? We have water shortages in our country now, yet we have a whole ocean. We have load shedding problems with devices that go down in hospitals because many hospitals do not have generation power. Why don't we ask the students to start looking into some of these problems and look at what solution, what mineral could purify water, ocean water, and create spaces of innovation quite apart from university learning. But I think of guys like Steve Jobs who have come up with iPhones and iMacs and never completed university. And I'm afraid that sometimes we go in this technical school trajectory without looking at other alternatives and other ways in which we can enable students who might not even want to finish high school but have brilliant ideas, but we don't have innovation centers because we're afraid to allow them to experiment. And experimentation is important for innovation. So how are they going to innovate if we don't allow them to have these hubs where they can go and make mistakes and continue to try until they come up with the right solution? So I think that we need a two-track method. Yes, we will need the STEM and the universities and tech, but I think we also need the innovation hubs that can sincerely begin to teach hands-on critical thinking that enables our youth to explore different ways of doing things.
Most definitely, those vocational training are very, very important for us to be able to cater for, for everyone. Those who can go to, math and science and everything they can do. And, there's actually a pool of young people that we can direct them into innovation hubs, your vocational kind of training. All right, so I see your hand, Tana. Let me just go into the chat. I saw some interesting comments here. Dr. Matt said that African women is the epitome of the rare minerals, right? Okay, let's go down, everyone. We provide STEM program under the resourced school. Okay, we hear that. I saw a few questions. Policies in education, Dr. Irene. Policies in education can help the mindset. I support the STEM. Thank you so much. Okay, all factors contribute to GBV. That Odile, thank you so much for that, Miss Makamu. No, Mukami. Thank you for mind-blowing presentations. I'm wondering whether there is a role for African women in diaspora who have passion for empowerment to change the continent. Unfortunately, we carry the challenges, yes, the challenges that of our mothers and sisters in our handbag, whether where to go, whatever to go. GBV, low pay, limited career. I think your question is yes. I mean, even just there's so many platforms, diaspora platforms, including LWA. We have so many diaspora. So feel free to get in touch with us. And Moro from Ghana is saying, can we have African Minerals Youth Union or organization? Well, leaders are here. Maybe it's something that we need to look into that. And Dr. Madeleine, again, we have to take action and not to leave it to organizations who are funded and then lose interest. So I think those are very important comments. If someone can have comments there. Dr. Irene said another problem is leadership in some of the African countries. We cannot agree with you more. I think we do have, maybe the panelists will comment on that as well. But yeah, they just really so much. Thank you for your insight, Dr. Madeleine. I would like to add that I've been in corporate space outside tertiary education. I've been forced into space for survival, and there aren't opportunities to branch into the sectors that I truly wish to be in. So we are forced to adapt. How do we then create spaces within the digital space where we are in? There's another question for panelists. You might have some ideas. So before we continue with the chat, let's go back to Tana. Let's hear from your other comments, Tana.
Thank you. I listened to all of the responses, and I think that they are great responses. And I do think that as somebody who went to an IEB school here in South Africa, St. Andrew's School for Girls, I do wish that I myself was more supported in going into the sciences because, of course, with the interest of protecting their pass rates, et cetera, even within the private school space and even within the IEB space, we are always taught go for what is attainable according to your marks and not what is attainable in terms of the future of our country and in our personalized future. So for students like me who, because currently I'm at the University of Johannesburg completing an information systems degree, how do at a university level, those of us who either have completed a degree, those of us who are still in the process of completing a degree, for example, those of us who are in the tech space or those of us who are in engineering, as university students and as students that probably already have a qualification that may not align with minerals directly, how can we now branch out? Because obviously there's a fear of, okay, cool, I could go back to school and do maybe a degree that's in the sciences, but like it was said in the chats, for survival, that's a very scary thing for me to do because for survival, that might not work out for me because I still have to get a job. I still have to be successful in my field, et cetera, et cetera. Do I have the time then to do maybe a part-time degree? Are there any qualifications that I can obtain or any groups I can join? That way, maybe from a tech, for example, I'm a tech babe. I love technology, coding, technical innovation. So how do we now add our skills and say, okay, cool, we're developing this AI robot. These are the minerals we have. How can we ensure that this supports Africa? How can we ensure that we are obtaining and building these robots that we have, these electronic cars ideas? Another friend of mine is trying to figure out how to bring service robots to help with, medical aid for people who need assistance that aren't being able to reach because they're in, for example, rural areas, et cetera, et cetera. So sending drones or robots that go and assist them. So how do we now implement our daily lives that we are already in that support this notion of no, Africa needs to take back her power and take back her minerals and take back her ability to produce value? And how can we then, as the youth that has already taken steps into career paths that might not actually benefit Africa at all, due to what we were taught in high school? Because I mean, there's many of us that were, like I said, that were encouraged maybe not to do the sciences or not to do, I mean, for example, I was told straight to my face, if it wasn't for my family and my mother who fought for me, I was told straight to my face, maybe don't do mathematics. It's not good for you. Maybe don't go into mathematics. Also that my school can protect their pass rate. So it's things like that. So how as university students or youth that has already taken a different career path, how can we now help Africa rebuild herself?
Interesting leaders. We have powerful youth in the room. Don't leave them. Dr. Madeleine, I see your hand.
This is my food. You're never at the wrong place at the wrong time. All of us, the older people in the room, if I can call it like that, the mature people in the room, we started somewhere, not necessarily because we wanted to be there, but we didn't know any better. Looking back and connect the dots back, every step I took helped me to become who I am today. If you have a mindset of nothing is impossible, then your tech skills are very needed in the mineral field. You don't need to be a specialist in the mineral field to be in the mineral field. You've got skills that they need for the future to take the mineral field to the next level. So you have to think outside the box, forget the school you've done, can't change anything about that. It gave you discipline, it gave you general knowledge, it taught you more about you, because that's where you learn. The school cannot make you who you become. They can only give you the basics, which they did. They have to cater for a broad spectrum of people And therefore, school is not always the best place for everybody to start. And we were all there. But you are not at the wrong place. What you are studying now, you can apply in the mineral field if you open your mind widely and you go and you produce your value. You have to find your purpose. You have to discover, who am I? When you have the I am possible awakened within you, you become unstoppable. You can go into any industry and you can add value because you represent the value and the passion and the purpose that's in you. For 20 years, I developed unemployed truck drivers that were sitting on the pavement next to the road, not having jobs, but the amazing skills. They knew nothing about business. They knew nothing about mindset. They knew nothing about representing themselves in the best possible way. I taught them that, and they became the best and the biggest earners. So that's where I learned it's not where you're coming from, it's who you're becoming in the future. Don't look at your school, how they force you and you nearly miss the mark to study maths. So what? You can always go and learn a bit more about that. But where you are at now is exactly where God placed you to go to your next step. All of us learned our skills and our wisdom along the way. When I look at my first job, I cringe, but to then it was the best. So just remember, it's a journey. What you see here in the room where we at, we had to walk the journey, but we all had to start there. School also didn't serve me. I asked the wrong questions. I argued that I knew they were teaching nonsense. And I was telling them that because in my gut, I knew it. And I stood by what I believed. That's all of us. So open your mind to possibilities. Discover the I am in you, because that will give you confidence, knowing who you are, setting up boundaries and giving you the drive to get to where you're at. And take what you learn now, your skills, your wisdom, and go and package it beautifully in a gift to the organization that you want to be in.
Thank you so, so much for that journey. Yes, Veloshni, let's hear.
Hi. So I hope I say your name correctly, Nsana. So it is so motivating and inspiring to hear that you actually want to forcefully put yourself into this resource industry. And exactly what Dr. Madeline said, don't go back, just look forward. So what you're doing now is absolutely relevant. Because what Africa needs, we need more innovation. As Ambassador has mentioned, we need innovators. And you are in a field that begs innovation. But if you couple that with the resources sector, you're going to come up with some amazing, amazing innovations, which this continent desperately needs. So you are perfectly aligned. Where you are now, whether you're completing your studies or you're still in the middle of it, don't stop. Finish your studies. Technology is absolutely relevant. But to get into the minerals and the resources sector, you can join various organizations that are actually in the mining industry, and you can join them. And you seem like a very proactive person. So you would just need to have a conversation and say, listen, I'm very interested to contribute to the resources sector. This is my background, but what would I need to do to be able to actively contribute towards the resources sector using what I currently have? So you could also just maybe do a couple of courses in minerals to understand them, in geology to just get an overall picture, or you could research yourself. There's a lot of information out there, right? Just to give yourself a baseline of how you can actually marry the two, your technology with the natural resources. And then you can offer that to the industry. And let me tell you, no one is going to tell you, no, thank you very much, go back to what you were doing. because we need people like you. We need the interest, we need the technology, we need the resources. And if you can put it all together in a package, like the doctor said, then you are going to be very much in demand and you're going to produce something that this continent desperately needs. So forget what is past, focus on what is forward. You are welcome to do a program not for degree purposes, just to give yourself the leverage you need to be able to contribute positively to the resources sector in Africa.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Veloshni. I'm sure we are learning as we go. Right, I see two hands, Babalwa and Jacqueline. Let's start with Babalwa.
To what has been shared by the panelists and participants in the room, the other way of just getting into the mining sector is so multidisciplinary in nature. One needs to understand the value chain so that you can position yourself as an entrepreneur, as the youth that has something that wants to know where can you slot yourself. Because if you look and start and say, okay, they are going to need to extract, but it doesn't start with the whole. There's transportation that is involved there. Others need to provide that equipment. There's also people that needs to be protected. So if you are a social person already, you can slot yourself there. There's stakeholders that needs to be engaged. Somebody who has got the skills of communication, you are already in the mining sector, you can slot yourself there. There's also land agreements that needs to be done. If you did law, you find yourself there in putting all those agreements. So the key is for us to go back to the basics, maybe when we are doing what the ambassador was saying, understanding what do we bring in the room, what minerals do we have, and what do they do for us? Then how does that mineral get to be extracted and the value extracted out of it? And then what skills are needed to be able to achieve that? We know that we have minerals, we grew up with them, but I think there's so much foundational work that needs to be done. And our youth is reminding us now that maybe we have just gotten so used to the fact that there is minerals and we have not done the groundwork that is going to be able to say to the world, this is what we bring in this room. And our youth, having been taught this even at home, when we are talking about minerals, if we don't even know what does lithium do, we're not going to even be able to influence our children. So we just need to go back to the basics. And the other opportunity that we're missing, since maybe we have not done this and we want to do it now, there are people who've been in the mining sector for so long and they are now deemed as retired professionals. I see the health sector has done it very well, that they are bringing back the nurses that were supposedly retired to come and bring their expertise back into the sector. There are people who have been retrenched because mining, it fluctuates. There's times where people lose their jobs or they are let go before their time or they are really retired. We need to bring those seniors and show the whether it's mechanics, people who are working in the workshop, fixing the mining equipment. It goes back to what was shared by the panels as well. Panelists have hubs where people are being shown how to fix mining equipment, how to be operators. You can even operate as youth and the women, this machinery. And we have people sitting with these skills that they can be brought back into the pool and help our children and our youth and even our own other people to be able to make decisions, because we make decisions sometimes in these positions not being well informed. And who is better well informed than the person who was doing this, who've been underground a mine? These uncles I was talking about, who are sitting in the rural villages, who worked in the mine, the indigenous knowledge that they have and the experience they got, were losing it. And it could be brought back and teach the younger generation on how to effectively extract value of the minerals that we've been blessed with. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Babalwa. Thank you for that comment. We definitely need those expertise is sitting somewhere, and we definitely need them back. Right, Jacqueline?
Good afternoon. I'm new to this platform. My name is Jacqueline Zwambila. I'm the former Zimbabwe ambassador to Australia and New Zealand. I'm retired now, but I just wanted to just put in some, just some background, because I strongly believe that if you do not know where you come from, how can you honestly know where to go? And one of the things which I don't hear of, we've always started talking about mining in Africa from the colonial advent. Yet we, as Africans, have been mining in Africa predating the European colonialist arrival on the continent. We're mining minerals such as gold, copper, lime, and salt, and trading with overseas organizations. Women played a very, very big role. Here in South Africa itself, Southern Africa, we just have Mapumbwe. I mean, if you look at the remnants of that was smelting. That was finished products. We talk of that we want to finish our own products in Africa. We have a history of this, of knowing what our minerals were and what we were doing with them. So then, of course, naturally, which means with the advent of colonialism, something happened. And that was a major disrupt to our own civilizations, because you had the European powers claiming the mineral rights, turning our land into private concessions. And this is very important. Local leaders were sidelines. Africans became wage laborers rather than mine owners. And today we only want to talk about how do we work in the mines. And this also involves the land question, because this is where the mines are. And a lot of our laws are based on the old traditional Roman Dutch laws, which says what is on top is yours, but what is underneath belongs to the government to sell. Taxation, and then came the taxation and forced labor systems, which forced men into the mines, pulling them away from farming and shifting gender roles. Because women were in mining before, but the colonialists brought a whole new foreign way of living, which disrupted us. And of course, naturally, profits flowed abroad, stunting the development of our people and our mining expertise and capital. That's just, I hear that there's quite a few young people in there, and they need to go back into that history. As I said, we need to know where we come from and where we are going now. From then on, we had the step of the carving of Berlin, after the First World War, carving of Berlin, Belgians and everyone taking bits and pieces of Africa, and that's where these funny borders were then formed into Africa based on those mineral rights. And then after that, we had the Second World War, which needed a lot of our minerals, and the New World Order, which we are in today, which is now being disrupted with, as we can see, with what is happening with this, with Trump, a declining empire, which is America, and the new world power happening with BRICS and other countries, China emerging. And in this, the mineral war is at it again, because they need the minerals in order for the new technologies, the electric cars, they need it for the technology, they need it for the drones, and Africa is being further divided by these secret deals with the DRC, etc., etc., etc. Whereas this is the opportunity for Africa to actually say they are the ones who are in power because they've got what the world needs. How are we as Africans? What is our position as Africans united to say this is our minerals. And this time we are not selling them for a song. This time we are saying this is the policy in Africa, because the G20 is about the African Union as well, that this is the position we are taking, and this is from now, and develop a whole new framework of trading in our mines, in our minerals, in order for the progression of the continent. That and a very simple thing would be no gold unless you develop this area. And we bring it part as well of the reparation story, which the AU is talking about. We should not miss this opportunity we have right now for Africa to reclaim its dominant importance in the world chain value. That's what I wanted to say.
Oh, wow, thank you. I think we really need to go back to that history. Maybe we should have a session just to really, those who understand the history to really tell us, because this is the journey that we need to understand. So we cannot, like Ambassador was talking earlier on, the value of the mineral. It's good to have those minerals and count them like like a prayer. We're just naming them. But until we understand the value of that and why Africa was divided into pieces and this one taking this part and all that, I think we all definitely need to understand that. But time is really, really against us. So for remainder of time, I would like to invite the panelists to give their final words. And after that, please stay in the room, for informal chat, for informal discussion. So let me invite Feloshni, if you can give your final word, please. Your closing remarks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madeleine. It was this was really an amazing conversation. There were so many very important aspects that we all agree upon and we all agree needs to happen. So we all are really on the same page. Now it's just a question of ensuring that the African leaders get onto our page, if I can put it that way. But I think I just want to reiterate the fact that Africa's future in the green transition depends not just on the minerals beneath our feet, but on our ability to govern them wisely and inclusively. And by adding value locally, protecting our people and the environment, we aim to transform today's resource into everlasting prosperity and sustainability for generations to come. And that is really what I think all the objectives of all of us in this field are trying to do, is to sustain the continent for future generations. And we may not have historically done it correctly, but I think that we can, and we are inspired and motivated enough to do it correctly going forward. And that should be the basis of all the fights that we start with regard to making sure that we are a voice in the African transition towards a greener future for Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Let's invite Ambassador Mohau to give her final remarks.
Thank you very much, Madeleine. This has been a really fantastic panel and a topic that probably needs more sessions. My closing remarks. I think, first of all, we actually need, as I said earlier, to go back to the periodic table and understand what these minerals do for us. Because if we don't understand what they do, we will keep talking about them in very general ways, while the West and the G20 countries recognize that this is the new economy, this is the future. And so I don't have a lot of trust that government will do what they need to do. We need a new level of activism that reclaims our agency and that reclaims our mineral resources, both under the ground and under the oceans and in the sky as well, as assets assets that belong to the African people. This is a very fundamental point. We've got to reclaim them. We cannot have all these large corporations just digging up our minerals and putting them on the trains, putting them on the cargoes and sending them back to their countries and bringing them back. We have to fight, even if it's mineral by mineral. In fighting for those minerals, we need to fight to create hubs where labs, where production, where manufacturing can begin to happen with those minerals. This is very essential. So it's not just about bringing the asset back, it's about ensuring that we create with those assets. And for me, that is just absolutely important. If we don't beneficiate, we are calling for our own dispossession and more poverty in all of our countries. So we have to fight for this as a principle, as a way of liberating our economies. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much. Definitely we need to continue fighting, hey? Right, Babalwa, your closing remarks?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. We need to learn from others how the other countries have done it, but do not abandon ourselves. Know our value as Africans. Bring back a good governance. Use our values of Ubuntu in governing the resources that we have, and include all. Our youth, we see the hunger and the passion that they have. Our women, we bring back the indigenous knowledge into the stream as well, and understand what the minerals bring. It goes back to me, that touches me, what Ambassador is saying, that we don't even understand what the minerals do for us. The minute we stop just citing them and understand what they do, then we know how to contribute towards the economic growth and development and what we bring into the and provide for the rest of the world as Africans. And we need to continue bringing enabling and supportive environment and governance, and then the regulations being at the forefront of that. They are, I know in South Africa, we have good mineral law, Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act, which is doing exactly that. But at the same time, we still need to promote beneficiation and really see what our minerals are doing for our people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Beneficiation is definitely something that we need to, to nail on. Dr. Madeleine.
I'm all for developing a new mindset for the future. We cannot create a new future with the same style of thinking and doing that brought us here. And Ambassador, I love what you're saying about your knowledge. You need to share that knowledge with as many people as possible. They need to feel your passion. They need to see your passion, because that's what ignites the fire in the youth and in others. You've got all that wisdom in you. It is just absolutely amazing to listen to you, and the timetables and all of that comes into play. So I think we must organize more forums like this, more events like this, where we can talk about these issues and come up with solutions with a crowd that can spread the word, and we can start to educate and to bring the change that we are all so passionate about. By stopping today, what we're doing here so beautifully now is not going to help any one of us in this room. But if we stick together, with our powerhouse together, and we drive change and transformation going forward, we can be the change. And that's what I want to close with.
I think we can be the change, definitely. There is a long journey to that change that we are looking at. I think we all mentioned about we do have the AU, we do have the agenda that they do have, but I think we need to be active. I think someone has mentioned how can we be active citizens, so until they need to know that, yes, we have placed them there. Our leaders need to understand that. So we really that to continue to really be active and share. Definitely, we will continue to have this kind of forum so we can continue. John, your closing remarks?
Thank you very much. African minerals are the future of the continent. Therefore, it must be protected by all means. That included strong institution, strong leadership, strong security. Now, one can imagine that for Russia to own a lot of minerals, what they did was to build a strong army. Wherever there is a lot of interest, you will see that the issue of security becomes very, very, very important. So once again, Africa have a lot of minerals. We need a strong, strong institution that protect those minerals. If we don't do that, somebody gonna come and take it by force. And once again, like I say, the issue of women participation when it comes to manage African resources becomes very imperative. And I believe that women of Africa will take the issue of managing mineral in Africa in a very, very serious way. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think we have reached the end. And what I could take away from this is that we have agreed that Africa is not just sitting on minerals, but is sitting on opportunities. But that opportunity can only be possible until we transform. So the message that really emerged into this room is that Africa must move from just extraction into transformation of raw minerals. We cannot just be the supplier. We need to be the architect of the technology, of the development, of the industries, so we can create jobs for our young people so that they can stop looking for greener pasture somewhere else instead of in our own land. So on behalf of Leading Women of Africa, I thank the panelists, the audience, the partners for joining this important session. So I would like to invite you next Thursday again, 20th of November, when we discuss about the energy transition and the just future, financing Africa's green ambition. Until then, let's continue to talk, let's continue to discuss. And so Africa is our future, Africa is our land. Before we go, I think
Thank
that is
you.
the end.